Fantasy football week 11 was a banger, and we have a lot to cover. We have overreactions. We have what we learned to apply to week 12. We got stock watch. We got a whole bunch of rivals of the week. All of this starting now. You are now listening to the Rival Fantasy Sports Podcast. Let's go. Welcome to the Rival Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Neal Maligno. Thank you for joining me as always. We are going to start this episode off with our rivals of the week. Let's get into it. Starting at quarterback, I'm going with Jacoby Brissett. You guys know when it comes to rivals of the week, there are obvious players to pick. There are guys who just scored the most points, who just absolutely balled out. And then there are ones who are not so obvious, and I like to filter them in every once in a while. Jacoby Brissett is one of those. 324 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 29 rushing yards. So we got running the ball a little bit. He had over 25 fantasy points last week. I wanted to highlight this because I feel like it might be one of our last chances to even highlight Jacoby Brissett, who is having this like resurgence in his career all of a sudden with the Browns, because Deshaun Watson is coming back in week 13 to play the Texans, his former team. So I wanted to give our boy Brissett one more shout out because I don't know when we're going to have this opportunity again to talk about Jacoby Brissett, and he's done a great job with the Browns. People thought that this team would struggle, waiting for Watson to return, waiting for this whole situation to play out, and here we are. He's actually done pretty well. Cooper's been productive. Donovan Peoples-Jones has been productive. The running game has been productive. And things have looked okay. Not too bad in Cleveland. So Jacoby Brissett should get a lot of credit for that because he held things together. He wasn't just like this game manager who just got by. He literally was out here making plays. So shout out to Jacoby Brissett. He is our quarterback rival of the week. Next position is running back. And I got to shout out my boy, Tony Pollard, the best running back in Dallas, the number one running back in Dallas. That's what I said. It's what I mean. Zeke Elliott is not the man there no more. It is Tony Pollard, 80 rushing yards, 109 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, almost 37 fantasy points in PPR. Just crazy. But listen, if you've been watching the show for a while, I'm a huge fan of Tony Pollard. I've been asking for Tony Pollard to just take the starting job, give him the number one spot, call him the starting running back of the Dallas Cowboys. They refuse to do it. The owner refuses to do it. The coaches refuse to do it. It's cool. It's fine. We all know it's really up. You can call people whatever you want. You can slap whatever label you want on Zeke, but Tony Pollard is the man in Dallas. The sooner they know, the better. It's clear that they're starting to figure that out because look at this rushing yards. Look at the receiving yards. I told you, I think it was like week 1 or week 2, that Tony Pollard would end the season higher than Zeke in fantasy totals. And I'm sticking to that, and it's looking like it's coming to fruition. So if you put yourself in position to take advantage of that fact, congratulations. At wide receiver, I'm going to slide my Raider in here. Davante Adams, 7 receptions, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns, slightly over 33 fantasy points. I'm mentioning him not just because he's Davante Adams, one of the best wide receivers in football, but also because the fantasy total is awesome. It's great. And the way it happened, right? Like the overtime touchdown, he cooked Patrick Surtain all game. Denver's defense, which is one of the top defenses in the league, just couldn't contain him. This was great. I mean, as a Raider fan, obviously I'm excited about it. I was happy to get a Raider win. That's always welcome, especially in a rough season like it's been. But Davante Adams has not come up short very often. This team has fed him the ball, whether win or lose. He's gotten the ball. He's been really productive. He's one of the top wide receivers in fantasy. And another great week from him, especially in this great overtime win. It was just great. He was talking crap about Surtain after. He was like, he's just too young. He's got a lot to go still. So like it was so much fun. So Davante Adams makes the list, not just for fantasy production, but for the impactful victory, the highlights after. Everything was just great. So he's our rival of the week at wide receiver. And at tight end, the rival of the week, I can't put anybody else here with Travis Kelce. 6 receptions, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns, almost 36 fantasy points. Mahomes said he's the best of all time. It's getting to a point where he's 100% in that conversation. I know that's going to make, some Patriot fans upset with Gronk, a couple of other fans upset with some of the other, all-time great tight ends. But look, when you watch this guy play, it's like undeniable how dominant he is. He's season after season after season, week after week after week. Kelce is just good. That is one bad man out there. Him and Patrick Mahomes are just in sync. It never fails. It's going to him. Half the time it does, and it's just they can't stop it. There's nothing you can do to prevent it. It is what it is. So Travis Kelce with that huge week, 3 touchdowns. He gets our tight end rival of the week for week 11. that is it for our rivals of the week. Congratulations to those players. If you had those guys in your leagues, congratulations on the wins. I'm sure you guys won, unless you ran into some of the others. It might have been a little rough for you. Let's move over to week 11 overreactions. So our first overreaction that I have here is that Najee Harris can be trusted again. He's had back-to-back games with 20 carries and 90 plus yards. So I feel good about it. I feel that this is a an uptick for him. It's more positive than the way the season started. It feels like the Steelers are just giving him more work and he's producing with that work. So it's easy to that goes hand in hand, obviously. So in this situation, I think it falls under the overreaction category just because we're not really sure. There's consistency has clearly not been a theme for them this season. This offense is in a lot of trouble. The quarterback, he's a rookie. It is what it is. Like he just hasn't been, he's not crushing it, right? Like he's not, this isn't the Steelers of old right now. And maybe it'll be that eventually, but this year has been tough for them. Najee Harris has had a really brutal year. You started hearing all these rumors, Jalen Warren. I talked about it last week. I didn't think that was legitimate. I don't think that, why would they do this? Why would they bench Najee Harris or really give Warren this, considerable workload that would affect Harris's workload? So I didn't buy that. So here we are, Harris, the last 2 weeks, back-to-back games with 20 plus carries. I mean, with 20 carries, 90 plus yards. So hopefully it doesn't become an overreaction. It easily can be if the Steelers revert back to what they were doing the earlier in the year. But Najee Harris, great game. Another overreaction we have here. And again, it might not be an overreaction. You tell me in the comments if this is true. Jamal Williams' value in fantasy football right now is higher than DeAndre Swift's. Please tell me what you think about that. Swift's workload is concerning. Jamal Williams has 12 rushing touchdowns on the year. I know DeAndre Swift had injuries. I know that definitely is going to hold him back. That's definitely going to, take some weeks off of his overall stats. But at the end of the day, Jamal Williams is rushing for touchdowns every single game, multiples. DeAndre Swift just isn't getting the opportunities. This is concerning because I, for one, had DeAndre Swift as one of the top running backs coming into the season. Like I drafted him very highly in certain leagues, especially like the Scott Fish Bowl, even. So this is definitely concerning. It's definitely worrisome. How I don't know how the Lions revert back to a situation where I feel as high again about Swift as I did coming into the season. I don't know if that's possible just because they've scared me off with this. And to be fair, they got it right so far. I mean, Jamal Williams has gotten those touchdowns, and for any reason he wasn't getting them, they would stop doing this, and they're not stopping. So I do believe that this is a very concerning thing, especially from a workload standpoint. I just don't know what's happening here. We want Swift to get those goal line carries. We want Swift to get all that, and if he did, he'd be ripping it up. But here we are, Jamal Williams just crushing it, and it's putting Swift in a whole lot of concern. My last week 11 overreaction. And again, I don't think I'm overreacting. You tell me in the comments your thoughts. This is the whole point of the overreactions. I want to know what you think. Demarcus Robinson is a legit option in Baltimore. This is not, that game, 100 yards, was not a one-off situation. With Bateman gone, I believe that Demarcus Robinson is their number one wide receiver. And I think that matters greatly. That's just a simple fact of it. Demarcus Robinson, he actually played for the Chiefs. Then he went to the Raiders in the offseason. The Raiders cut him, and then he went to the Ravens, similar to Kenyon Drake in terms of the Raiders cut him and they went to the Ravens. And in the preseason, he actually had a big game. This season, he hasn't had any big games except last week, week 11. And that's because he just wasn't given the opportunities. Bateman was there, rightfully so, gets a lot of the work. And then other guys were getting injured. Mark Andrews got injured. All these situations were happening. The offense was in this, place where a lot of players were getting injured, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers. But Demarcus Robinson came out and had a game. I think it's a legit game. I think it's not a one-off situation. I think that he'll continue to be the wide receiver one there going forward, whatever that counts for in Baltimore at this point. But I do think that it's not a reaction on my end. I'm curious if you think it's a reaction to think that Demarcus Robinson is the number one wide receiver right now in Baltimore. All right, that's it for the overreactions. Let's jump over to what we learned in week 11. The beautiful thing about this, we spoke about him at the top of the episode. Pollard is officially a trusted top 15 running back every single week. Every single week. He's been consistent now. There once was a time where Pollard, Zeke would get a lot of the work. Pollard would flash and then disappear. Pollard would flash later on, disappear. Now we're at the point where Pollard is there, consistently present in this offense. The Cowboys can't go away from it. It's just a fact because he makes their offense better. He is part of their offense here in a major way. They need help at wide receiver. You hear the rumblings of OBJ and all that kind of stuff. Nothing you can do at this point will shake me off of this. Pollard is officially a trusted top 15 running back every week. I think he's better than that. I think he's above top. I think he's a top 10 running back. If they keep getting him that workload, he's in there. So trusted top 15, but I think he has potential to be top 10 for sure. And I think we've learned that. So we have to apply that going into week 12. You no longer question yourself on starting Tony Pollard. He's in your lineup every single week. I don't care if Zeke's 100% healthy. I don't care about any of it. Pollard is in your lineup every week. It doesn't matter the matchup. It doesn't matter who's starting, Zeke, this, that. None of it matters. Pollard's in your lineup every single week. You can trust him. Pacheco, the Chiefs, number one running back moving forward. It is what it is. I've been in this place where I've been tossing back and forth, right? Like, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire going to get the role? Is McKinnon going to eat too much into the work? There's all these running backs here. Will it matter because Mahomes throws the ball so much? There's a lot of wide receiver weapons and Juju and MVS and all these guys. What is Andy Reid going to do? Is he really going to just give one guy the workload? Is he really going to let Pacheco, outbeat Clyde Edwards-Helaire? And that's what's happened here. That's what it feels like at this point. So for me, I'm trusting Isaiah with the job going forward as the number one running back for the Chiefs. That's how I'm approaching the situation. So if your question is, should I pick him up if he's available? If your question is, should I trade for him? If the league manager, the team manager that has him wants to trade him, if he's available, it's up to you guys. But I'm all in on Pacheco as their number one choice at running back. So I believe going into every game, he's the start in your lineup. They want to start him. They want to use him. They want him to be their guy. He looked great. So there's no reason for me to have an ill feeling about this. I feel confident in saying that he's the number one running back for them going forward. Like I said, he looks good in the offense. They're using him well. And this is an offense that's such a threat at any time. So any weapon in the offense is a great option for you in fantasy. So that's how I feel about that. I think we've learned that in week 11. Something else we learned in week 11 for the Rams is their offense without Kupp leaves no player in fantasy that you can trust. And what I mean by that is you've seen how the ball got spread around this week without Kupp. Guys are catching touchdowns. Guys are catching big plays, but you can't trust any of them from a week to week basis, in my opinion. I don't think that I'm confident in any of these guys. You have this thing happen where when a player gets injured who has a big role, you assume like one guy is going to step into that role. It's not how it plays out typically. And on top of that, no one there is as good as Kupp. Kupp is a very special wide receiver. So it's not like, well, look what Kupp's leaving behind. Someone's got to take that. They don't. They don't, and they're not going to. This is going to be spread all over the place. You're going to have to find your luck on a week-to-week basis on which wide receivers you're going to choose. I think they're all, decent options because again, this offense is decent. They can pass the ball around. They do have a lot of targets that are vacated from Kupp being gone. None of the players that they have are as talented as him, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to move the ball and still score touchdowns, right? So you just have to guess week to week which one you think is. Look at the matchups, see the corners that they're playing against, see who they've been favoring, who's been getting the targets. All these things matter, in terms of this Rams offense and what wide receiver you're going to choose. And then, of course, the other thing that we learned in week 11 is all these injuries that are piling up. Fields, Wandale, Mixon, again, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Pitts, Stafford, Tony, Mike Williams. All these guys got injured, all at different varying degrees. You have to, stay on top of these. Some of these guys are out for the season. Some are just concussions, which can be weird. Sometimes a guy plays the next week. Sometimes they miss 2 weeks. It's just a strange situation. The Pitt situation is bad. The Wandale situation is bad. The one I'm paying most attention to is Fields, because obviously I felt like Fields was a guy who was going to help you win the fantasy championship this year, just because you probably got him at a decent value. And he's just been going nuts, right? No matter what the Bears do, Fields goes crazy in fantasy. So this is the biggest one for me. Pitts, while it sucks, his fantasy production wasn't what people predicted it to be. And none of these other guys you're really been relying on. I guess Mixon, but I don't think the concussion thing is too serious. I don't think he'll be missing tons of time. So I'm okay with that one. However, these are the biggest things that we learned in week 11, in my opinion. Again, just to repeat, just to kind of put it all into a nice little bow here. Pollard, you can officially trust him as a top 15 running back the rest of the way. No concerns. Pacheco is the Chiefs' number one running back moving forward rest of season. Rams offense without Kupp, you cannot trust a wide receiver in this offense. They all will get work. They all will score touchdowns. They all will get yards. You just don't know which one and what game. And so that's going to be hard to deal with. And then the injuries. We're getting close to the fantasy playoffs. These injuries matter more now than they ever did. And this is why when we do waivers, we talk about you getting guys not just because you need them that week. You get them because if I get an injury, I'm going to need someone down the line in week 13, 14, 15, 16, who knows when. And so who do I trust when I look at the schedule, when I look at the team and how it's built? Who do I trust to put in this roster that I can stash, that I can sit on? I'm not going to play him right now, but if things get really bad for me, which situation plays out the best for me? Am I handcuffing a running back? Am I looking? I'm not really into backup quarterbacks too much. So like, whoever fills in for Fields, it's not like I'm not picking that guy up. But in a situation where it's like a Mixon and a P Ryan, right? Like that has a value. So those kind of situations, it's a lot to weigh. If you have questions in particular about any of these injuries, drop them in the comments like you always do. I'll be happy to get to them as soon as possible. Again, if you're subscribed and you like the episodes and all that kind of stuff and you're supporting the show, I'm going to get to yours faster. But in general, I'm trying to get to everybody's questions and comments in the comments. So just leave them there. Let's move over to the last segment that I want to do on this episode today, which is the Week 12 significant stock watch. Guys that I think went up and down in a significant way. We may have talked about some of them already. We may not have, but I do want to get into these. So let's check out some of the values that have moved up and down just from the last week or two. First player, Cam Akers, stock up. Stock up. There's no question about it. He got the highest workload on the team at running back. This is a weird situation, right? Like going into the year, I'm thinking I like Cam Akers. This should be a pretty good season. Hopefully, he's fully over it. The team, invests workload into him, and he has a pretty good season. Didn't start off that way. It was weird. Then he wanted to be traded, so we're all thinking, of course, he's gonna be traded. Why would they not? Then he doesn't get traded. Then he plays. Then he gets more carries than everyone else on the team. Now, Darrell Henderson gets cut. What's happening? Make sense of this all for me. I don't know what to tell you, but at the end of the day, Cam Akers got a lot of work and it's important. It matters. And they cut Darrell Henderson. So whether they bring in another running back or not does not matter. Cam Akers got a legitimate workload. He did pretty well with it. So for me, it's stock up on Cam Akers. And again, we just talked about their offense. They lost Cup. So they need playmakers, and Cam Akers just happens to be one of them. So good situation for Cam Akers going forward. Brandon Cook stock down. This situation, I mean, Mills is not improving. I thought he would have a better year this year. He's not really improving for me. The targets aren't there for Cook. He's another guy who was like kind of unhappy or something. He was kind of talking like subliminally about the Texans. It was weird. He wanted to be traded, it seemed like possibly. Again, stock down for him. I'm not feeling it right now going forward. This is a guy who we've been able to rely on a lot in fantasy. It's just not the case anymore, or at least this season with this team and this quarterback. The situation just isn't getting better. The targets aren't there. I'm not excited about this offense in general. Pierce is cool, is fun, but the rest is just kind of not great about it. So stock down on Brandon Cooks. Donovan Peoples-Jones, stock up. I love this guy. Caught his first touchdown in week 11. Consistent workload and production. This isn't like a 1 week thing. I'm not big on this guy had a one good week, buy him, right? But this isn't the case with DPJ. He's been consistent. The workload's been consistent. His production's been consistent. Watson's coming back. This is going to help him even more. I don't want to, I don't want to go too slowly on these stock up, stock down guys, but you're getting the point. Stock up on DPJ. The situation's been good and it's only going to get better. DeAndre Swift, we talked about him earlier in the show, stock down. Obviously, I mentioned him earlier. I'm not digging the whole workload, the whole Jamal Williams stealing every single touchdown this team has to offer on the goal line. So everything is taking a hit for me in the DeAndre Swift category. And for me, this is a big stock down because I was super stock up coming into the year on DeAndre Swift. So this one hurts. This is a personal one for me. Again, I felt really good about him. I thought that everything was, trending up for him coming into the season. And instead it's not going great. So for me, Swift is a stock down right now. Jawan Johnson is my last one on the list here. He's a stock up. Consistent workload. Also, you notice here, the thing that's going on for me is a lot of consistency. I care about consistency as we're coming down here towards the end of the season. I don't really care about 1 week explosive plays necessarily. I care more about consistently. Are you doing it week to week? Because you can sit here and churn out players every single week on waivers, and you're going to keep getting these guys who went good last week, bad this week, good last week, bad this week. I want to know who's consistently been doing it. Jawan Johnson, consistent workload, trending up. It feels like he's gaining trust, obviously, with the QBs and the coaches. It's all starting to work. Legit tight end options starting moving forward for you. I have no problem putting Juwan Johnson in my lineup. Tight end is a weird position. A guy can get a touchdown and be in the top 10 on a weekly basis. So Juwan Johnson is definitely a tight end one for me going forward. Not the tight end one, but a tight end that you could put in your starting lineup 1 through 12. And he deserves to be there for me. So stock up for Juwan Johnson. Listen, guys, that's it for today's episode. You guys know I like to keep these short, sweet, to the point, get the important information out to you, talk about the players who played really well and really highlight those guys, highlight the situations that are a little concerning so you can start to make the moves. This isn't really a week 11 recap. It's more of what did we learn in week 11 that we can use moving forward, whether we're overreacting to something, whether players that are just balling out, things that we've, totally learned that we feel like are official, and then things that are just stock up and stock down. So this whole episode, while it's a week 11 reaction in a sense, it's really a week 12, projection looking forward and, what we could take into it. So shout out to everybody who's watching on YouTube. Really appreciate you guys as subscribers. Just keep going up. If you're watching and you're not hitting subscribe, please hit subscribe just so we have you on there. Yeah, it's this whole algorithm thing that we got to feed. So hit subscribe. This way you don't miss an episode. It makes it easier for us. Turn on the notifications. That's way when the episode drops, and you don't have to, watch it one week, miss the next week, and things like that, right? So lots of love to everyone listening on the podcast apps. If you already subscribed, left a review, shout out to you. We appreciate it. Share it with a friend. Whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Apple, whatever you're doing, please share this with a friend. Share this with the fantasy community that are watching. I don't care if it's on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever your favorite place to share information is. Please share us out there. As always, you can find us on those Twitter, IG, TikToks at Rival Fantasy on all of them. Again, if you let us know that you're a listener, when you follow, I'll follow you back. There's lots of alerts. There's lots of things we're managing. It's hard to catch everybody. So if you just send a quick message when you do the follow, I'll make sure I don't miss the follow back. Otherwise, sometimes it's a little harder. And again, most importantly, visit rivalfantasy.com, create an account, make a deposit, and you can start playing our games. We have challenges. We have bingo. We have fantasy book. We have all these fun things that help you just have fun while you watch the game. So you get in there. We got a sweet promo running right now, 100% loss protection, up to $50 on your first deposit. Get on there. We have videos that show you how to play everything. It's all very simple. It's very fun. There's money to be won. So we will catch you on rivalfantasy.com or wherever else we connect with you. Other than that, guys, I appreciate you for watching. Good luck in week 12. We're out.